Addiction can take place quickly.
And it can lead to a devastating life.
I started using when I was 14, and I started with marijuana and partying all the time and finding pills at parties, and then pills got too expensive and I pretty much went straight to heroin.
I started using drugs in high school. It started off as just a way to fit in.
I got started using out of sheer curiosity, seeing other friends doing drugs of different sorts and types. I wanted to fit in somewhat and do what they were doing, especially with older kids. So I started smoking weed and drinking alcohol, and as I got older, things escalated and I began using other drugs of harder form.
And then I found a guy who partied just like I did and did the same kind of lifestyle choices I did. And he was an opiate addict, and we were both in recovery for a short amount of time. And we didn't stay that way, made poor choices, and before you know it, I was hooked on his drug of choice, which would have been opiates and heroin.
My cousin came over and asked me if I wanted to get high with him. And being 14 at the time, I was a little naive, more than I am today. And when he didn't tell me that it was heroin, I knew it was a powder and that I assumed it was a pill. And I, again, didn't assume to ask the question of what it was. I tried it, I snorted a line, and the second I felt it, I was addicted to heroin, full blown. I told my cousin out loud that I wanted to do heroin every day for the rest of my life.
Using when I was in high school to begin with marijuana, drinking my sophomore year. By the time it progressed into college, I was trying cocaine. And then I was a bartender downtown, and I got somebody showed me Oxycontins. And, I started using those, which is an opiate based. And then when those got too expensive, I went to my dealer and asked him if he had some more pills to sell me, and he said no. So he said, but you can try this and it's free. So I tried it and I became addicted to heroin.
Yeah, my drug usage, eventually I became highly addicted. It first started off with painkillers, opiates, and later on it became speed, things such as meth, crack, and eventually heroin. But it kind of progressed up the scale.
I became addicted within 2 months of using. With using on the weekends and everything else, it became a daily use for me very quickly.
I got addicted over the course of a little bit. It didn't take me very long to get addicted to drugs. I started off addicted to drugs like weed and alcohol. I wouldn't say it was more of a daily use, but it was more of the way I used when I did. And as I progressed, I was pretty much addicted to anything I could put into my body.
It took me probably 2 weeks to become physically addicted to heroin.
A lot of changes happened to me just with my whole person. My brain began to think differently. I became more debased in my thinking and my intellect. I started to live kind of moment by moment. Physically, my body was losing weight. I was becoming sick. I would have abdominal pain. Just my mental health altogether started to really deteriorate. I started seeing things that weren't real.
Emotionally, I pretty much lost the ability to feel and to have emotions.
The things that changed for me was my attitude was the biggest thing. I started rebelling against everything and didn't want to do anything with anybody. I wanted to isolate myself.
I was all about drugs. I did anything I could to get them, from stealing to robbing my family, too many crimes, to barely keeping a job, living out of my car.
And socially, that was one of the biggest changes my life saw, was that socially I was only hanging out with people that wanted to use drugs, or I would only hang out with people and have relationships with people to manipulate them and to get what I wanted out of them.
The withdrawals were terrible for me. It was like the flu times 100. I was getting sick. I, couldn't stay away from the toilet. It was restless legs, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat.
Heroin was different, and it didn't take any amount of time to get to a point where you have to withdraw. There's no getting around it. And sleep isn't real. It's not even a thing. And I felt like I went nuts because I couldn't grasp why I was still alive.
I remember times just screaming into my pillow, just from the agony of not having the drug. And then even in the long term, not just even initially, but in the long term, it took a long time for my brain just to heal from certain thinking patterns.
But I hurt in my bones. You know, my back hurt, but not just like your back hurts, like in your bones, you know? You couldn't eat, but you're starving and you lose your bowels. And, you know, because who knows how long it's been since you've had a normal bowel movement, because that's what opiates do.
An average day for me was I would wake up and I would contemplate where I was getting money from. I would usually steal something. I would have to find somebody or think of a way to steal anything I possibly could just to be okay for that day. And as soon as I was okay, I would do it all over again all day long.
You live moment by moment, and so you don't think ahead, but you're always thinking and scheming of how I could get money, where I could get drugs, who could I steal from today.
My cousin, who I started doing heroin with, was always, we'd always go out, and for several years we went and we'd do crimes all day long, crime after crime after crime.
All you're on your mind is getting that first shot. So in that process, I would have to either hustle somebody for some money, go out and commit a crime, or manipulate my family somehow to enable me to get me money, lie to a friend or a family member or cousin to somehow get the money going so I could get well, and then continue on that process the rest of the day to keep stealing, robbing, cheating, whatever I could do to continue getting high.
My turning point was I got in trouble with the law, and it was my first time being in trouble with the law, and I ended up going to prison.
I died on my mom's birthday, May 12th, 2014. I was told by my drug dealer that I wasn't supposed to do all of what I had got from him, and it was stronger and new. And being young and dumb, I thought I knew better than he did, and I didn't. I ended up in the hospital for the night on my mom's birthday, and the next day I made the decision that I wasn't going to do it anymore. I went back on my word for not doing it the rest of my life.
And after the second overdose, I realized the first thing I said to the gentleman I was with was, "Are we out?" And later that day or the next day, I told him that I'd surrendered to addiction and I was going to die this way, and I was good with it. Whatever the junkie lifestyle had in store for me, I was down, you know? And then like 2 weeks later, I could see people's faces and hear their voices, and it was like something just came down and touched me on the head. You're gonna die, and I mean it. What are you gonna do?
The thing that turned me around and led me to recovery was really taking into perspective where my life had gone in terms of my relationships with my family, my old friends, the people that loved me and supported me the most. And more than anything, I would say the lack of love I had for myself. I hated myself, I hated my life, I was suicidal.
What's helped me most in recovery has to be the support group I have around me. I have some of the most amazing friends and people around me that growing up or while I was addicted to heroin, I didn't even know these kind of people existed. So
The best help for me is, doing my 12-step program and contacting women and having a circle of women to count on. Men too, but mostly for me it's women. Being able to contact them no matter what and being able to share what's really going on in my life.
For me, the most beautiful part of recovery is I have an awareness of myself, and it's real. And there's this unity amongst us, people in recovery that really live a recovered lifestyle. We're brothers and sisters fighting a fight.
I think the first thing that I would say to anybody who's contemplating on using is focus on what you want in life, because it doesn't matter whether you pick up once or twice, you could immediately become addicted to it, and it's not something that you can stop right away.
I know a lot of the times people want to use because their friends are using, and sometimes it looks attractive, and you might even be popular if you do use drugs, but it's not worth it in the end. It is a lie, and it will not only strip you from your family and your hobbies, but it'll eventually take your life.